What's good, everybody? Welcome in to the Fantasy Down Low. I am your host, Mr. Moore, aka J Muller 05. Show ran a little bit behind today. We had an important teams call meeting with personal corner and stuff. Got some good details done. So sorry about starting a little late today, but we're going to jump in and get rolling on this lovely episode. I know I teased it a little bit talking about a rookie, and it was a rookie who balled out on Monday Night Football for everybody to see. Where you have the Island game, and there's somebody who's just living that fantastic life where you're like, man, we were wondering going into it, is he the guy? And then what happened? All of a sudden, Mr. Jahmyr Gibbs showed up and was a stud. So I kind of wanted to bring him up in general and more hit on him and why I think he's such a valuable asset. Because if you go back to rookie time, when everyone was wondering where they rank him above, and like we'll talk about Superflex, right? Where we had the 101 was consensus, right? And then we moved on a little bit. And we weren't sure. We were like, it was Bijan. And then we had the debate of the 102 and the 103, and people were taking Anthony Richardson, myself included, a lot of Anthony Richardson. The 103 is where I settled on with Gibbs, just because I thought he was a better option than the quarterbacks. Obviously, Stroud's looked fantastic, and Young's coming on a little bit soon, but it's nice we're kind of seeing that from him. So I wanted to more just talk about him in general, to his value, go from there. So give me 1 second, I'm going to pull him up, and let's see. So I'm going to present an option where I show you where he's ranked at, and we kind of go from there. So we're going to pull up Keep Trade Cut, and everybody can see. As you can see, Mr. Jahmyr Gibbs, he is right number 23. And that's some high capital, right? And this excludes Superflex. So he's right there with Travis Etienne, Garrett Wilson in early 2024 first. There's Anthony Richardson, Breece Hall. These are massive names. Puka Nacua, a name you never thought you would see. And you kind of go down, you see how highly valued he is. There's literally only 10 quarterbacks ahead of him. So he's talking about he's basically a second-round pick in Superflex startups. Why is that important? Well, because you're sending enormous capital on this guy. But we finally saw the game. We saw the game from him last night on just how good he is and how much of an asset he can be. We saw them flex him out a lot. They pushed him out outside. He did some counters. He did a lot of good things with an offense. And I think really the benefit for him is playing in the Ben Johnson system in that offense, which just supports running backs left and right. We've already seen David Montgomery do his thing. We've seen last year, we saw how it worked out for Swift in a part-time role and Jamal Williams. They both balled out. Like, obviously, it was not full-time. It did not always work out, but it was a really good year for him. So I'm going to pull up and talk about this for a second. So give me 1 second. I'm going to pull up the videotape. We can kind of jump into the videotape and break down because I managed to clip his Monday Night Football game. So we'll go from here, as you see right here. Go pull it up. We can just go over his snaps and talk about it. So here's the first snap of the game for Gibbs, as you can see here, folks. Any form like this is going to be a run play, so just FYI. As you can see, he reads it here, and there's not really much for him to go there. So we'll go back a little bit. He sometimes with Gibbs, he's really just taking what the defense is going to give him, and he's really just reading his line. As you can see when you watch him, when you're bottling him up, and this happened in week 3. Where he went in for an injured David Montgomery and got 20 touches, but it was all just up the middle. It wasn't great stuff. So in this game against the Raiders, who, FYI, not a good defense, they managed to use him more in space. They flexed him out. They would motion him to the outside and they'd throw him a couple swing passes, things like that. It was a really well orchestrated version of him. So here we go. We got another run play for Gibbs on this one. And watch here. Look how the hell this play set up right here. You can see we have 41's in the backside hole. We have 59. The linebacker comes up. So watch what Gibbs does here. He reads, and he kind of gets stung up because the center gets blocked. 91's doing a good job, and 41's sitting in the hole, right? So there's really nowhere for him to go. His vision is not fully there yet. It's like he's slowly adjusting. So he's a little bit late on that read, but it's still really nice to see from him. Like this one is, kind of hit or miss. As you can see, they flex Laporta. They motion him in. And here we have another run for Gibbs, and we'll show you what I'm talking about. This is just a handoff, straight up dive, and he reads the hole and he just hits it. Sometimes you'll see smaller guys such as Gibbs who want to bounce it outside, but realistically, he took what there was allowed, and this sets him up for later if you're going to continue to take those. Because if the defense sees you continue to take what is there and you're not trying to bounce it out, they're going to clamp down on it a little bit, and this actually comes and helps you out later in the game. So we have that. Now, as you can see, I pushed it out wide, so you can tell this is going to be a passing down. So watch how they use Gibbs on this play. Gibbs gets set up. They swing Gibbs out in motion, and you see, look at so the fact they motion him, and look at this. He's got a blockade of 3 guys out in front. We have Mr. 58. He's pulling to get the linebacker here, and look at this, all this space here, right? So this is just really easy. And what you're doing is you're getting Gibbs in space. And this is why it's so important for Gibbs, right? Because you put an electric athlete who's just explosive. And the more tape we watch of this, you'll see just how explosive he is. It's just great. So we see him right here. So he passes out. And so we have two guys on one. What you really need here is you need this guy to come hit the safety coming down. It doesn't really happen. It's a little late, but Gibbs still manages to get the first down on it. And that's really important. So on our next play here, they motion Gibbs back, and you see it. So watch how they use him here. Goff takes a snap. They're just going to swing him out, and he just sits. And you know what? That's spatial awareness and understanding where you're open, and he just sits down. Because like sometimes these are choice routes with these where they can go wherever they want, right? And this one, Gibbs sees he's not going to be able to go anywhere, so he just takes it and goes with it. So it's really nice to see. And you know what? That's just a solid. And the nice thing about it here also is the fact he fights for every yard. He's a smaller guy. You wouldn't expect that. He's not quite Devon A-Chain with this stuff, like who is also another smaller back. A-Chain's a better inside runner. He's pretty powerful. Gibbs is a different kind of explosive where he has more quick than he has long speed. And you see A-Chain, he just gets a hold, he's gone. Gibbs is not as quick, but he's right up there with him. So yeah, like him also fighting for these yards is just a great way of using him. And yeah. So as you see, he's getting motion back out from him outside. He started out. They bring him in, and he's basically a slot wide receiver on this play. So watch how this play works out. So you get the break. Gibbs takes, bang, and he just sits again. And Goff's under pressure, so we'll back a little bit, right? So watch it again. So watch Goff under pressure. So Goff sees the pressure comes in, just hits Gibbs right away. And that's check down. And look at him. Fights for an extra 4 yards there. That's just well done. You love to see that from him. So in this game, this is early in the game, as you can tell, because I've clipped every play he's involved. We're only a minute in, basically 5 minutes worth of footage. But you see how Ben Johnson was scheming up touches for Gibbs early in this touch. And really, he just had a great game where he was involved in every aspect of the offense. And this bodes well for him. And I think I sent out a tweet where I said, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. And you literally can't get to this point, right? Because you see why they took him with a 12th overall pick. Obviously, not every game is going to be as successful because you're playing a suspect defense of the Raiders who, as we can tell last night, they fired their head coach. They fired their general manager. They really just threw up their hands and said, you know what, we're not doing this anymore. So it'll be interesting to see how the Raiders shake out moving forward from here. I think they'll probably pay a little bit better just because McDaniels is clearly not a competent head coach. He's had multiple tries at it, and he's better. He's an okay schemer for offense, but just really him as a coach is just not there. So I also wanted to jump back in to talk about where do we go from Gibbs at this point, right? Because he had the monster game, and where you can see the game log, he basically had 26 carries. He ran 24 routes. He had 5 targets. He had 5 receptions. He had 189 total yards. He was the RB1 of the week. Obviously, this is his best game of the year. This was following up a 27-point performance against Baltimore where they got their doors blown off against Baltimore, but it didn't even matter. Like, he literally lived in basically what we call garbage time. The PPR schemed the heck out of him. He was just getting check downs, and they couldn't really do anything else in offense, so they relied on him. And this game was a little bit different. Like, they more got a lead, and they still relied on him. So it shows you that Gibbs can be successful in either format. Obviously, the caveat is Montgomery's coming back, right? So if Monty's coming back, it's a little bit different because, healthy Monty, he's going to see some more work. So Gibbs isn't going to see this absurd snap share and all these touches, right? Because he pushed 86% in week 7 and 71% in week 8. We'll see how it shakes with Montgomery moving forward. But, expect him to be more splitting work, which the thing about him is because he's such a PPR cheat code for fantasy and the way fantasy is structured around pass catching running backs, just go look at Alvin Kamara in New Orleans. You see these things for Gibbs where I think I saw a tweet today earlier where someone was talking about the head coach was a rookie coach in New Orleans back in 2017, and he saw how they used Alvin Kamara. And I was like, that's a good point to bring up because we're seeing a lot of similarity from Gibbs, right? Like, he's not a bell cow. He's not going to get 40 touches a game. We're not going to see what they saw with Saquon Barkley last week, where it was 41 opportunities. That's not how Gibbs is going to succeed. He's just you're basically scheming to get him in space where he's going to make guys miss and really just make the defense pay for giving him every touch possible. So we have another one right here. So we have the centers pulling, the guards slanting. They're pulling left, right, and just watch. So Gibbs reads it, and this is actually a good run, even though it doesn't work out very well because he's decisive with his cut, and that's what you want to be. A lot of times rookies are really, and we saw this with Jonathan Taylor's rookie year, it took him a while for his vision to catch up. When a rookie is doing this where they make that cut right away and they hit the hole, that's what you want to do. Obviously, it doesn't always work out, right? Because sometimes that won't work out. But the fact he's making those decisions and his eyes are like staying up with his talent and adjusting to the speed on NFL defense, that's what we want to see. So let's watch this play here, right here. Gives us a motion. Watch that. And boom. Just there's really just nothing you can do. That's just Max Crosby just making a freak play. And sometimes, really good players succeed. And Max Crosby is one of the best defensive ends in the league, if not the best. He's up there with the Myles Garretts, the TJ Watts of the world. He's just a stud. So let's go back to the next play for Gibbs. And here we go. So we're going to motion. And you see how the motion causes the defense to just stumble for a quick second. So let's pull it back real quick right here. Watch it again. Watch the motion. Watch everyone shifts. And this puts 59 in a worse position. It puts 41 in a worse position as well. And it opens up a little bit more room. Now Gibbs just follows, and he reads the hole perfectly and just goes with it. Sometimes that's all you really need to do. You don't need to you just got to take the 4 or 5 yard runs and live with those. Obviously, it'd be great if you could bust it out for a 100-yard, carry every time, but that's not how it works in the NFL, right? Because if you're not disciplined, it will bite you in the ass. And if you're trying to make, a big play every time, this is what killed CJ Spiller in the NFL. He kept trying to make a big play instead of letting the big plays happen. And when the big plays happen, that's because, you follow the blocks, you read them correctly, and you just go. The nice thing for Gibbs is he's such an explosive athlete. Like, that's going to work in his favor, where if he gets a step and he's just open in space, he can just burn you. So, this is what we like to see from Gibbs. And it's just a nice power play. Now, we're watching this one here. You watch how the line sets up. And look where they are. So, Gibbs is going to read the block. We have the pulling guard here. It's wide open right here. He could take it if he wants to. It's just going to take him a second. He follows it through. And you see by him following it through, by leading with his lineman, this play becomes a much better play. So instead of a 5-yard run, this turns into a much bigger run because look at that space opening. Great block. There's a seal here, and Gibbs just slides right through it. So this is what I'm talking about. And then so that play just that close taking it house. Sometimes guys get the calf and they get you down. But you see how by him being patient on that play and letting the block develop, it becomes a much more successful play. So this is the nice things we're seeing from him on the ground game. Like, this was not what he was known for as being an elite rusher, like inside the tackles and everything like that. Like everybody talked about, you get him in space, get him open. But the guy's a good runner for football. Like, he can make stuff work. He can go straight behind the center. He can go behind the guard. He can do a little counter play. Like, he has all of that in his arsenal. It's not his best thing in the world. Like, obviously his best asset is his pass catching ability. For fantasy, it's like that too. But you see how he's able to be used, and this is what's very important with him. And just if they're going to continue this, where they have these big leads and they can count on him, now that's just a tough play. I wish he would have broke that one, but we'll watch this play from here on this side. So you see they motion the tight end and they set it up. Then we go back and then we tinker a little bit in Amenra. Interestingly enough, like, it's a little bit delayed step there. You want him to kind of just hit it a little bit sooner, but like he's trying to avoid the center. He's trying to kick it over because it's basically a counter is what this is, right? It's a backside counter. So you send the tight end over in motion, then you bring 14 over. Amenra is on the outside, and you motion him in, and it kind of confuses the defense a little bit. Where it set up a hole, but it wasn't executed perfectly, and they didn't really make it work. What I want to kind of branch into is more not just this game film footage, but this is more just so you get the same eyesight of what I'm looking at when I'm talking about these players. Like, we look at the game tape and we actually break it down. Because yes, I'm very much a data focused analyst, and that's what I do a lot. But integrating this actual game tape where you see players that are difference makers, and let me tell you, Jahmyr Gibbs is a difference maker. He makes a lot of guys just look slow by doing what he's able to do, and you put him on the field, he gives them an explosive ability that this offense does not really have. I know we all love Amon-Ra St. Brown, but he's not an explosive athlete. Laporta is able to push downfield a little bit, but he's not super explosive either. This is what they need from Jameson Williams that they're not getting. But Gibbs gives them that out of the backfield where he's able to create these massive chunk plays, right? Because this is what this offense needs to take it over the top. What do you sell him high for? Because I would be very curious about this answer. If you're getting if someone's treating him as a top 5 running back the rest of the season, then yeah, absolutely. But even with Montgomery back, he can. It's really just how much you think of the usage he's going to get. If it's a more an actual where they're splitting work, he can be a back end RB1. I don't think that's out of his range of outcomes. That seems completely fine. And we obviously still need Montgomery to be healthy. So these next few weeks, and if you want to sell super high, go for it. But we were talking about this from a dynasty perspective. I want all the Jahmyr Gibbs I can get. And yes, I guess my daughter is a big fan of Jahmyr Gibbs. we were on the call earlier, and she just like came in. She had lipstick all over her face because she was having a good time, and I was like, "Yep, that's my daughter. It is what it is." So we'll jump into this next one real quick right here. But yeah, you can see they motion Amon Ra, and you see how that kind of just makes the defense shift a little bit. What's nice about this is it's really just it's a good idea, but he's really just running into three guys, so it's not really going to work for him. As we move on to our next touch for Jahmyr Gibbs, we're going to see it from behind, straight behind Jahmyr Gibbs and Jared Goff. So as you can tell, this offense runs a ton of motion. If you haven't noticed this yet, Detroit runs some of the most motion you'll see. It's up there with like the Rams, like they're just a ton of motion, and it's no surprise, right? It's that same coaching tree with Ben Johnson. Like motion is a massive aspect of this team, and this is why like Jared Goff is successful because he's so used to the scheme. But yeah, like if you're motioning these guys, what you're doing is you're creating leverage on offense. You're overloading one side of the ball, or you're taking a guy off, and you're putting the defense in an unbalanced place to be. So you're really putting them in a spot they don't want to be. So as we move on to the next play for Gibbs, I kind of want to show you what I'm talking about right here. Goff wipes his ass, Bill checks. And in this one right here, it's just straight up. It's just nothing. So unfortunately, sometimes these plays don't work. And that one, I wish it was a little bit better, but we'll break it to the next play for Gibbs. So now we're going to give Gibbs in space here. As you can see, Goff, he just gives him a check. And what's great about this is where the explosive ability that Jahmyr Gibbs has. He turns a nothing burger into a nice 20-yard play. As you can see from like right here, this is what it is. He's just an explosive athlete. And that's the horse collar tackle that was talked about in Monday Night Football. It really just sets him up. But you just watch him and continue watching our play here. This is him being patient and actually like that. He stutters a little bit, but that patience is just beautiful. Like, that's what makes him so good, right? So let's pull this up. So sharing with that. I'm going to pull this back up one more second. But yeah, this is just why I'm such a big fan of him. Obviously, he's not going to see 80% of the snap share. He's not going to see that many massive touchdowns. But like where we're at right now, he's 17th in weighted opportunities. His targets, he's 7th. Like he's getting involved, and this is what you want to see from him, right? Because the guy's a good player. And excuse me, hi, what you doing there? You want to come say hi?
No, boy, no.
You don't want to come say hi?
Hi.
Yeah, you want to say hi? Okay.
Yes.
Oh no, poor Monty. The thing about Monty is he's a good runner. Oh, careful. Careful. Yeah, you need to be careful. Okay. Yeah, as you can see, I'm with the last of the Mohican tribe here. She's got the whole virus thing on her face. She's been having a fun day. Yeah. Be careful. Yeah. So I know you want to be on the computer. No, you're not gonna sit with me. Okay. It's okay. It's okay. Do you need to blow your nose? Go blow your nose. Thank you. But yeah, like we're talking about here, like the things he does and how he like translates to fantasy success is this really easy. As you look at his fantasy, like he's a top 12 running back with a very much roller coaster season for him, right? So this is what it is. We kind of expected more usage early, but like the further on along we got with it, that's what you're talking about. Like you're slowly integrating more and more and more, and this is the offense becoming more comfortable with him. So there's that on top of it as well. Like, so once the play caller and they have the trust with these running backs is essential, this is where it really takes off. And as you can see, the guy's just really good. Like, I don't know how else to say it, right? Like, the guy's he's a free athlete. And this is why they took him so high in the draft and did what they did with him, because he does things few running backs in the NFL. And I seriously mean that. Few running backs in the NFL can. Like, he breaks down a defense in such a different way. So a lot of running backs aren't able to do that, right? Now, we'll watch here. Watch the handoff. And Gibbs makes a nice little cut there where he basically throws the D tackle off. And he's able to, get back to the line of scrimmage. Sometimes it's about just making a positive play out of that. We got another more motion from this offense. Once again, this is what it is, folks. Like, you see this all the time with this offense. They motion nonstop. And now Goff's going to check. He lets everybody know the play, right? And we go from there. And they're going to give it to Gibbs here in 1 second. And just watch him. I'm not going to say anything. You just watch. Like, and you see how he finished that play off, like, with force. It's. I know he's small. He's undersized. But, man, like, the guy's putting his everything. He's making you earn that tackle. That's a really good run right there. Right? And if I was going to take away one thing from it, it was his progression. He was reading the play correctly, took a little second, and then his explosive ability. Like, he just fired out of a cannon. And, like, this is too fast for the defenders. These linebackers and these safeties and even some of these corners, they can't keep up with that. Like, this is where He literally just takes that corner, and the guy chasing him has no shot. So I'm backtrack a little bit. You can see it. So just watch it. So we watch it here. And I really want to highlight just how fast he is. So watch right here. So look right here. So you think the Eddie has a shot at him, but realistically, he does not have any shot. Now there's a little bit of reach there for 74. It doesn't get called. It is what it is. But and you just watch him. It's so nice. Ooh, excuse me. This is we're stuttering a little bit here. And I don't know what's going on with that. Okay. Interesting. There we go. Yeah, you just see the wheels. Like, it's just so nice. Like, this is what I'm so thrilled about. And here we go. We have a nice little just draw play. Takes it outside. Gets back to line scrimmage. You would expect a little bit better blocking because sometimes, it would work out better, but it doesn't always work out. And now we're going to go back to another play for Gibbs from this game. And he's going to swing it out. That's just, that's Max Crosby making a play. Sometimes the defense wins, and Max Crosby is just damn good. He's a damn good end. You'll notice I've called Max Crosby a few times. But this is the play where he's just like, yep, guess what? I'm too fast, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. So he literally just blows the edge, and he's gone. And this is just a nice 18-yard run. No big deal. It's just, this is the things that keep showing up with him. You watch him on tape, and we've said this all year. He just looks like a better running back than David Montgomery. There's things Montgomery's better at doing. He's more like sound. He's been in the NFL a lot longer. Like, he understands what it is for him to be a successful running back in the NFL. But there's just things about Gibbs where he just blows the doors off. So, like, this is what I love to see. And, like, when I watch him, I'm like, man, I don't know how you really just go away from that. Like, obviously, they're going, they're letting David Montgomery take those empty calorie touches where they're really chewing clock. And they did this with Reynolds a little bit in this game, too, where they pulled Gibbs out a few times where they were just like, we're just going to let Reynolds get some touches. That's totally fine. They do like to run the ball. Like, I think people think of Detroit as this up-tempo, heavy pass offense, but that's not really Detroit. If we look at pass rate, I think Detroit's one of the lower NFL teams, but let's double check that real quick. Yeah, so if we go to pass play percentage, where would you have Detroit? You would be surprised to find them. They're nowhere not there. So, like, it's interesting to look, right? So Detroit is 22nd in the league with 55%. Like, they don't pass a lot. They like to use their ground game to set up a lot of things. And this is where the motion comes in, and they really like to just, even though they'll line up in basically 11 personnel a good amount of time, they're willing to kind of move out of that where basically they'll have, 3 wide receivers on one side, they'll overload it, and you'll see it, and there'll come another motion play. I was watching the game tape, and I can't tell you how many motion plays I saw, but there was so much motion. And this is really just confuse the defense and really just make the defense unsure what's happening because of defense. If you have a split second where you're delayed, like, you already missed the play, especially with someone as explosive as Gibbs. Like, that's the thing with Gibbs. All right, so sorry, we just having a little difficulty here with this. All right, so we're going to go to the next play here, and we get another view of it, and that's just a nice cut by Gibbs, and that's so close for him turning that into a monster play, but that's just a really good cut by him. Like, that's him just being super successful and really just making sure it works very well for him. So we're going to go down. Well, some more tape on Gibbs, and here goes a little swing pass, and here it is again. He just finds the hole. Boom, that's just a nice 5 yards. And they motion him back into the backfield from the edge. They had him out wide, and they really tried to, set the defense up, but the defense was ready for it, and they tried to orchestrate it that way, but it did not work out so well. But that's all right. That happens sometimes. So we're getting more to the end of the game for Gibbs, and you see a lot of his rushes. So you see a lot of his more success. The success rate came from outside plays than it was more inside plays. But there were a few counters in there that worked really well, or more like delayed handoffs where you don't take a drop play, things like that, where you let the play develop and then he kind of chooses the hole. He's still not there with his vision yet. Like, that's the last thing that's coming along. But the speed, obviously, that translates. It's more getting his process and his thinking on the NFL playing field up to what it was last year because he was playing college guys, right? It's a lot easier when you're by far the fastest guy on the field. When you're not by far the fastest guy on the field, you still need that processing everything to catch up to where you are as an athlete. So that's the one thing that's just behind for him. So, like, that's more like what I love seeing from him is he's working through these things and he's being a very successful player because, like, they give him the ball, right? And what happens? A bunch of big plays and a bunch of explosive play rates. Like, these are the things that you really just love to see from a running back. Like, he's already at a 60% target share. That's absurd usage from a rookie. We're pushing into that. He's getting to that Alvin Kamara range, that Christian McCaffrey. Like, he's getting there as a rookie. He's not fully there because his target rate is not always there. But you look, he's got an okay juke rate. It's 20%. His, evaded tackles is 18th. His breakaway run rate. So this is kind of thing. He's been pretty boom bust. But, like, his breakaway run rate, this is what I talk about, explosive plays. He's 4th in the NFL. His yards created, he's a little bit up and down on that, but like the way he's working and the way he's been used, like it's not bad. His yards per route run could be a little bit better, but this is solid running back. The things to keep in mind is he already has 10 red zone touches, so that's solid usage. If we look more at like team plays per game, they're running a good amount of plays. Like this is the thing about that offense, right? He's involved in a ton of these plays. And you look at how his carries have broke down per game. It's been all over the place, right? The week 3 game that I was talking about before, it was just the usage was not great. It was a lot of stuff up the middle against that Atlanta defense that is proving to be pretty solid. But now we had Baltimore where he had a ton of receptions. And then against Vegas, it was just all these total touches that led up to just a monster game. It was true like breakout, right? And that's the thing where it's like, hey, is Jahmyr Gibbs here to stay? Well, it's like to a point, yeah, he's definitely here to stay. And in Dynasty, if you have him, you have to be loving life of like, you saw it through, didn't trade him away, you're up there and you're ready to go with him. It's interesting, actually, if you kind of look at his deals and what he's going for and kind of decide, like, is he worth that top 5 running back price? Because you could pivot off to him and, decide like, hey, I actually want to go somewhere else, right? But let's actually pull up Keep Trade Cut here because I kind of want to break something else really quick to show y'all as we're going to focus this on Dynasty and go there. So give me 1 second as I pull that up. And we go to Keep Trade Cut, right? So let's pull up Gibbs. He's number 23, I think it is right here. Yes, he is right here. So we're going to pull him up. You see how his value is kind of, it's cratered. So early in the year, it's tanking down. He got down to the RB8, and this is when Montgomery was really taking it over to see the usage. But you see where he started out, he was RB3, and he's creeping his way back there. So if you're patient with these guys in Dynasty, especially these premium assets, sometimes they just need a little bit of time. But like, would you trade it for Jonathan Taylor? Would you trade it for Kenneth Walker? Would you trade it for Devin Achane? Like, that's what you need to ask yourself. You can obviously move into these high-priced wide receivers and go from there. But it's really just like, what do you want to do with him, right? Because that's what you have to decide as a manager. Do I hold him? Do I ride him out or did I sell him? I was actually sending off a deal of Olave for him in Dynasty on a contending squad. And if I'm rebuilding, then I just flip it, right? Because you don't want these points on your roster if you're rebuilding. So I think if you're rebuilding, you sell him high. And if you're not trying to contend this year or next year, right, then he doesn't really help you because these young running backs don't help you. Like, he'll be going to his prime, he'll be losing value, stuff like that. But if you want to make the push with him, like, I'm totally fine sending out that capital for him. It's going to cost you a lot. It's not going to be cheap. So you basically have to send the equivalent of a top 24 player or an early first, or you have to combine, an older player. Like, you have to do a late first with an older back, like something like a Saquon Barkley, and to like kind of equal it out, you have to do something along that, or you could do, if you really want to get bold with it, you can go after, if you have Christian McCaffrey and you're rebuilding, I think that's the perfect kind of flip you do. Obviously, you could probably get a little bit extra, but if you're looking to kind of like, replenish your squad and it's not working with McCaffrey, which seems very strange, but sometimes this does happen, right? Or if you have Eckler, one of those guys. Yeah. I got a little bit of time. I'm gonna wrap this up here in a little bit. But yeah, like what I was saying is it's really up to you on what you want to do with this player. But by showing you this tape of what I'm seeing as an analyst, I hope you see like what I love seeing from Gibbs. Obviously, he's not a perfect running back. Like, every running back has holes, and the best running backs are good talents in excellent systems. And Gibbs is about as close as you're going to get to that. Obviously, I think Devin Achane is probably a little bit more of that. I'll shoot you a message, Aaron. But because he's in the Miami system and they don't have a David Montgomery like that's going to use a best for him. Like, I know we like Raheem Mostert. Like, I like him for this year. I sent a late second round pick for him in a league just because I needed the depth, and I was like, you know what, let's ride with it. But the difference is it's going to be easier for Achane to really get those touches. The way that it works for Gibbs, though, on the flip side, is like he doesn't need as many touches. Like, he gets to live with the PPR world. So if you're in PPR leagues, like, you don't need a ton of touches from him, right? If you're giving him 10 to 15 touches a game, like, that's totally fine. He could be in a back-end RB1 just doing that because he's in one of the best offenses of the league. He's going to get plenty of scoring opportunities and just these high-value touches. Like, this is kind of interesting because we talk about some guys that are not getting the high-value touches, and this was like we talked about with Kenneth Walker going into the year. He's going to lose that goal line work. People worried about Travis Etienne newsflash, they're not losing it. They're actually getting a lot of the touches. So it's just that team's betting on the talent of those players, right? And this is what you have to kind of do in dynasties. You kind of have to not just think about the here and now, but think about a few weeks down the road. Like, how is it going to shape out for you? Because the dynasty is all about the value game. It's living in the time and the moment and finding ways to extract value, or even if it's not value now, it's value down the road. So, for instance, if you would have, bought into Puka Nacua after week 1, right, where everyone's like, "Oh, is it going to happen?" You're like, "I don't know. I have the faith," and you buy in for like a second round pick, right? And then it hits, and it massively hits like it did for him. You have so much like equity from that type of deal, right? So this is the thing with Gibbs. I know it might seem pricey as RB5. It's really not. Like, his value isn't going to drop. Like, it might go to like RB7, but this is basically his floor for the foreseeable future in Dynasty, because this is how we treat youth. And it's just if you as a manager are willing to do that, like I'd move someone like Waddle. I'd move any one of those guys. These high-end wide receiver 2s. CC, hold on for one moment, please. These high-end like young wide receivers, and I would totally move them in. So like the one where it really gets questionable for me is Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think he's definitely above him. But if you get a package, like for instance, I was trying to get Gibbs in the late 1 for Amon-Ra, and the manager balked at that. But that's like the type of move I was trying to make, where my team's kind of in this middle ground, and I don't want to be. Like, if you're in the middle ground, Dynasty, you're dead. So I was trying to finding ways to kind of like dissipate my assets into multiple, and I was looking at that. So like basically a deal you're comfortable with, like AJ Brown, yeah, like if I could tear down from AJ Brown, get a plus added on to Gibbs, I'm gonna make that deal, right? So it's all about wherever you have your strength, or if you really want to break it down with like using him as a piece into an elite asset. And on the flip side, I'll leave it with this: it's like using him plus somebody to get into that truly elite quarterback tier super flex. If you want to do that, I'm all for it. But if you're trading him, it should be for basically the truly elite of the elite assets. Don't disperse him down into getting like, we'll talk about David Montgomery and, like a second, like that type of move just kills you. Like, you get no value out of that, and you're likely not going to get that much production. So like I said, he's definitely a buy for me. And I've been trying to acquire him. Obviously, I'm a little late to the party on that. I should have done it before last week, but I've got a couple more shares of him now, where I think he's at like 20% roster for me, and that's a good spot to have him. I don't want to be like 50% or anything like that in my dynasty league, because I'm a process player. But if you're in, individual leagues, or if you only have a handful of leagues, then I get it. It's a little bit different, right? But you definitely want this guy on your team for the foreseeable future. Like, he's going to be a high-end fantasy producer year in and year out. With that current system, the staff, I know Jared Goff, people are worried about him, but they're just going to ride with Jared Goff. I don't see how they find a quarterback upgrade. Like, with where their team's currently at, they're trying to win now, and they've basically, pretty much locked up this division already. They're going to ride with Goff for the foreseeable future, right? So you have all these pieces in place, and it's going to be him, it's going to be Laporta, it's going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown. These are going to be the 3 guys that they're going to ride through the rookie contracts with. And like, he's a guy you want on good offense with a good play caller. I will say that at some point Ben Johnson's going to go, and that's going to suck. So whoever they bring in might change it a little bit. But hi. Okay. But I did want to say thank you all for coming in today. You want to say bye to everybody, Cece? You say bye?
Bye.
Yeah, so it was from Cece, my daughter. But yeah, thank you all for coming in this week. If I'm going to leave you with anything, it's just go get Jahmyr Gibbs. Like, he's a very good player. And we're only reaching, okay, take it. We're only reaching the beginning stages of, like, him continually being an RB1 for the next 5 years. Like, this is where I'm at with him. I've been in on him ever since I had him as my rookie 103 in Superflex. He was the 102 in like my 1 QB leagues. But yeah, just go get him. I'll just leave it with that. So take care, folks.